When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I had already felt that goodbye coming long before she said the words. People often ask me what loneliness sounds like. To me, it's not the silence of an empty house. It's the sound of someone closing a door, gently, politely, and never opening it again. I used to believe love was something you earned by giving. That if you raised a child with everything inside you, every meal, every prayer, every sleepless night, that love would come back to you one day, like the tide returning to shore. But tides change, and sometimes they don't return the same way. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 63 years old, and I live in a small town on the edge of the countryside. There's a tall oak tree outside my kitchen window, and every morning I make tea and watch the birds gather on its branches. It's a quiet life now, a little too quiet if I'm being honest. But it wasn't always like this. There was a time when this house was full of laughter, when my son Daniel's voice would echo down the hallway, calling out, "Mom, where's my lunch?" I used to complain about the noise. Now I would give anything to hear it again. Daniel was my only child. His father, Robert, passed away when Daniel was 8. It was sudden, a heart attack on an ordinary Wednesday. I remember standing in the hospital corridor, holding my son's small hand, and realizing that from that day on, it would just be the two of us. We became each other's world. I worked 2 jobs, mornings at the school cafeteria, evenings cleaning offices, so Daniel could have a good education. He never asked for much. He was gentle, thoughtful, the kind of boy who'd notice if you looked tired and bring you a glass of water. Every milestone in his life felt like mine too. His first school play, his graduation, his first job. I still have the photo from that day. Daniel in his cap and gown standing beside me, his arm around my shoulders. He was smiling, and I remember thinking he's ready for the world now. When he got his first apartment in the city, I cried that night. Not from sadness but pride. He was making it on his own. That's what every mother hopes for, right? To see her child stand tall. To know all those years of sacrifice meant something. He used to visit every weekend. Sometimes we'd bake together, sometimes just sit and talk about his work. Then one day he mentioned someone new. Her name was Claire. I remember the way his eyes lit up when he spoke about her. He said she was kind, funny, ambitious, that she made him feel understood. I smiled and told him I couldn't wait to meet her. And when I did, I understood why he loved her. She was polite, well-spoken, with a calm confidence about her. She thanked me for dinner, complimented the house, even brought flowers. Everything seemed perfect. But love, I've learned, changes things. Not always in big ways, sometimes in quiet, invisible ways. Their visits became shorter. Phone calls less frequent. At first, I told myself it was just life, work schedules, busy routines. But deep down, I felt something shifting, like a thread slowly loosening from a seam. Still, I never complained. I'd tell Daniel, "Don't worry about me, son. You have your own life now." And he'd say, "I'll visit next week, Mom. Promise." But next week would turn into next month. I filled my days with small things. Gardening, volunteering at the library, baking pies for the neighbors. But evenings were hard. That's when the house felt too big, the clock too loud. I'd sit by the window with a cup of tea, looking at the driveway, hoping maybe tonight his car lights would appear. He didn't come often anymore. When he did, Claire came too, always polite but distant. She'd help clear the table, but her eyes would wander to her phone. She was kind, just not warm. I remember one night after dinner, as they were leaving, I said softly, "You two should come stay for the weekend sometime. I'll make Daniel's favorite stew." She smiled, a polite kind of smile, and said, "Oh, we'll see, Mrs. Carter. Maybe when things slow down." Mrs. Carter. Not Mom. Not even Evelyn. Just Mrs. Carter. It wasn't wrong, just formal. But somehow it hurt more than if she'd said something cruel. Weeks turned into months. I'd leave voicemails that never got returned. Holidays came and went. And then one spring morning Daniel called. "Mom," he said, his voice gentle but hesitant, "Claire and I are thinking of buying a house." I smiled into the phone. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Where?" He hesitated. "It's a bit farther out, about 2 hours away." 2 hours. Not too far, but far enough that visits would become rare. I felt my heart sink, but I didn't let it show. "That's lovely," I said. I'm so proud of you both. He sounded relieved, maybe even a little guilty. I knew you'd understand, he said. Of course I understood. That's what mothers do. We understand even when no one asks how it feels. When they moved, I helped pack boxes. Claire labeled everything carefully, kitchen, bedroom, books. Daniel was busy carrying furniture. At one point, she looked around my living room and said softly, "You must be happy for him, Mrs. Carter." "I am," I said, and I meant it even through the ache. That night, after they drove off with the last truckload, I stood at the doorway, watching the taillights disappear down the road. The house felt quieter than ever. I walked through each room, touching the walls, remembering the echoes of laughter that once lived there. That was the first night I realized my home wasn't his home anymore. Sometimes love asks you to let go, not because you want to, but because holding on too tightly might push them further away. That night, I whispered into the stillness, "Be happy, Daniel." That's all I ever wanted. But part of me wondered, would he ever say the same for me? The first few months after Daniel and Claire moved away, I kept myself busy. I painted the kitchen a pale yellow, trimmed the rose bushes, even joined a book club at the local library. I thought maybe if I stayed active, I wouldn't notice how empty my days had become. Daniel called once every week at first. "Hey Mom, just checking in. How are you?" I'd always answer with the same cheerfulness, "Oh, I'm doing just fine, dear. You sound busy." And he was. He had a new job, a new house, a new life, and I wanted to believe I was still a part of it. Claire spoke sometimes in the background, a polite hello. That sounded more like an obligation. I didn't blame her. She had her own parents, her own world. But sometimes I wished she would talk to me the way she talked to her friends, easily, warmly, without formality. One evening, I baked Daniel's favorite apple pie and decided to surprise them. I called ahead, of course. I didn't want to just show up. "Mom, that's sweet," he said. "But Claire's parents are visiting this weekend. Maybe next time." I laughed it off. "Of course, honey. Another time." But that next time didn't come for months. Visual cue. A calendar flipping through pages. Leaves falling. Winter settling in. The holidays arrived. Christmas had always been Daniel's favorite. The smell of pine, the twinkling lights, the way we'd stay up past midnight wrapping gifts we both knew we'd open too early in the morning. I waited for his call, expecting the usual question. "Mom, what time should I come over?" But instead, the phone rang with a softer tone. "Mom, about Christmas." He paused, and I could already feel where this was going. Claire's family invited us to spend it with them this year. It's her parents' anniversary, too. "Oh," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "That's lovely. Family should be together. That's all I ever wanted." But part of me wondered, would he ever say the same for me? The first few months after Daniel and Claire moved away, I kept myself busy. I painted the kitchen a pale yellow, trimmed the rose bushes, even joined a book club at the local library. I thought maybe if I stayed active, I wouldn't notice how empty my days had become. Daniel called once every week at first. "Hey Mom, just checking in. How are you?" I'd always answer with the same cheerfulness, "Oh, I'm doing just fine, dear. You sound busy." And he was. He had a new job, a new house, a new life, and I wanted to believe I was still a part of it. Claire spoke sometimes in the background, a polite hello. That sounded more like an obligation. I didn't blame her. She had her own parents, her own world. But sometimes I wished she would talk to me the way she talked to her friends, easily, warmly, without formality. One evening, I baked Daniel's favorite apple pie and decided to surprise them. I called ahead, of course. I didn't want to just show up. "Mom, that's sweet," he said. "But Claire's parents are visiting this weekend. Maybe next time." I laughed it off. "Of course, honey. Another time." But that next time didn't come for months. Visual cue. A calendar flipping through pages. Leaves falling. Winter settling in. The holidays arrived. Christmas had always been Daniel's favorite. The smell of pine, the twinkling lights, the way we'd stay up past midnight wrapping gifts we both knew we'd open too early in the morning. I waited for his call, expecting the usual question. "Mom, what time should I come over?" But instead, the phone rang with a softer tone. "Mom, about Christmas." He paused, and I could already feel where this was going. Claire's family invited us to spend it with them this year. It's her parents' anniversary, too. "Oh," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That's lovely. Family should be together. He seemed relieved. We'll come by after New Year's, I promise. After he hung up, I stared at the tree in my living room, half decorated, half forgotten. I turned off the lights and sat there in the quiet glow of the fireplace, realizing that family should be together. Just didn't include me this time. When New Year's came, Daniel did visit, but it wasn't the same. He looked tired, distracted. Claire sat beside him, scrolling through her phone, occasionally smiling but rarely speaking. I brought out tea and cookies, trying to fill the silence with small talk. How's work, sweetheart? Are you enjoying the new place? It's good, Daniel said. Busy. You know how it is. I nodded. And you, Claire? She looked up briefly. Oh, it's been fine. Just getting used to everything. I smiled. You're both working so hard. You should visit more often. I could cook for you, or you could just relax here for a weekend. Daniel hesitated. Yeah, we'll try, Mom. It's just been hectic. I noticed the way Claire's eyes met his. Just a flicker, but enough. A silent message that said, don't commit to that. They left an hour later. When I closed the door behind them, I caught sight of the teacups, both half full, untouched. The cookies sat cold on the plate. I stood there for a long time, listening to the echo of the door latch, realizing I'd been talking more to fill the space than to connect. Time has a way of stretching when you're alone. Mornings felt longer, evenings heavier. I stopped setting the table for two. Even the radio seemed too cheerful some days. I started writing letters I never sent, little notes about the weather, about how the roses were blooming again, or how the neighbor cat had kittens. Sometimes I'd write about memories of Daniel as a boy, the day he learned to ride a bike, the time he built a birdhouse with his father. It was my way of holding on. Then one spring I got a message. Mom, Claire's pregnant. I read the text 3 times before it truly sank in. My heart filled with a strange mixture of joy and ache. I called him right away, my voice trembling with happiness. Oh, Daniel, that's wonderful news. How's she feeling? She's good, he said, his voice softer than usual. Tired but excited. I can come help, you know. Maybe stay for a bit when the baby comes. There was a pause. A long, uncomfortable pause. Mom. Claire's mom is already planning to stay for a few weeks. She wants to be there to help. Oh, of course. That makes sense, I said, forcing a smile he couldn't see. She'll need her mother. He sounded guilty. You'll visit later, okay? Once things settle down. Of course, I said again. That night I stood by the window watching the streetlights blur through my tears. I wasn't angry, just quietly forgotten. Months passed before I finally met my granddaughter, Lily. She was 6 months old, a tiny bundle of light with her father's eyes and her mother's smile. When I held her for the first time, she gripped my finger tightly, and I felt my heart open in ways I hadn't felt in years. I whispered to her, "Hi, sweetheart. I'm your grandma." Claire smiled politely. She's a little shy around new people. I just nodded, rocking Lily gently, pretending I didn't hear the word new. For the next hour I sat quietly, memorizing every inch of that little face, knowing my moments with her would be short. When I left, Daniel hugged me briefly. We'll come visit soon, Mom. Promise. But soon never came. Lily grew up in pictures, photos sent through text messages, small updates shared in passing. Her first birthday, her first steps, her first word, all milestones I experienced through a screen. That night, I made myself a cup of tea and realized something painful but true. You can't hold people with love alone. Sometimes love means watching them walk away and learning to stand still in the emptiness they leave behind. I still remember the day it happened. It wasn't loud or cruel. No one slammed a door or raised their voice. It was just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows when something inside you finally breaks. Not with a shatter, but with a sigh. It was autumn. The leaves outside had started turning gold, drifting across my porch like little reminders of time moving on. I hadn't heard from Daniel in nearly 2 months. So one morning, after staring at my phone far too long, I decided to visit. It wasn't planned. Just one of those moments when the heart acts before the mind can stop it. I baked a loaf of his favorite banana bread, packed a small bag, and caught the morning bus to their town. It was a long ride. I watched the fields roll past the window, remembering how Daniel used to rest his head on my shoulder during trips when he was small. I wondered if Lily did that now, if she leaned into her mother on long drives, the way he once leaned into me. When I reached their street, I felt my hands tremble. Their house was beautiful, white shutters, a small garden, wind chimes on the porch. I stood there for a moment, taking a deep breath, then rang the bell. Claire opened the door. She looked surprised, polite, but not particularly pleased. "Oh, Mrs. Carter," she said, her hand still resting on the doorknob. "I didn't know you were coming." Her voice wasn't unfriendly, but it wasn't warm either. I smiled softly, holding up the basket. "I brought some banana bread. Thought I'd surprise you all." Behind her, I could hear Lily laughing, that sweet high-pitched laugh that only children have. My heart lifted, but Claire hesitated. Daniel's not home right now. He's working late. You should have called first." I didn't want to be trouble. "You're not trouble, Mom," he said quickly. Then after a moment, "It's just, Claire's been stressed. Work, Lily, the house, she's juggling a lot. I don't want to overwhelm her." I swallowed hard. "Of course. I understand." He exhaled. "You know we love you, right?" "I know, sweetheart," I whispered. "I know. But love, I thought, shouldn't feel this far away." The calls grew fewer again. Sometimes weeks went by. Then one evening, Daniel called with a tone I hadn't heard before. Cautious, uneasy. "Mom, there's something I need to talk to you about." I felt my chest tighten. "What is it?" "Claire thinks maybe it's best if we set some space for a while. You know, just so she can settle into her routines without pressure." I didn't speak. He continued. "It's not that she doesn't like you. She just feels it's too much right now. The visits, the calls, everything." I still didn't speak. The silence stretched so long that he finally said, "Mom? You there?" I forced my voice steady. "I'm here, dear. I just don't want things to get tense," he said softly. "I love you, Mom. I really do." "I love you too, Daniel." When I hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. The word space echoed in my mind, how gently he'd said it, as though space was kindness. But space, when given by those you love, feels like exile. Visual cue. Evelyn packing a small suitcase, slow, deliberate. A month later, Claire called me herself. Her voice was calm, too calm. "Mrs. Carter, I hope you're well. Daniel's been meaning to talk to you about something." My heart sank. "Is everything all right?" "Yes," she said quickly. "It's just that the house is small, and with the baby things get crowded. Daniel thought maybe just for a while you could stay somewhere else. Maybe near your sister." "My sister," I repeated softly. "She lives 3 states away." "Oh," she said, as though she hadn't realized. "Well, maybe that would be good for you. A change of scenery." I didn't answer. Then she said the words that would stay with me forever. Not cruel, just plain. "I think you need your own life, Mrs. Carter. Daniel and I need ours." I felt the air leave my lungs. I smiled, though my voice shook. "You're right," I said quietly. "You're absolutely right." And that was it. No argument. No begging. Just quiet acceptance. When Daniel came by a few days later, I had already packed a small bag. He looked uncomfortable, like a man torn between 2 worlds. "Mom, I don't want you to think." I stopped him with a hand on his arm. "It's all right, Daniel. I understand." He looked at me, really looked, and for a moment I saw the boy he once was. The one who used to promise, "I'll always take care of you, Mom." But he didn't say that now. He just hugged me lightly and said, "You'll call me, right?" I smiled through tears. "Of course." That night, I stayed at a small motel near the bus station. The walls were thin, the bed too firm, but I barely noticed. I kept thinking of Lily's face, how I hadn't even said goodbye. Outside, rain began to fall. I sat by the window, listening to it against the glass, and whispered, "Goodbye, my boy." Not because he asked me to, but because sometimes love means knowing when you're no longer needed. In the morning, I took the first bus back to my little town. When I walked into my house, the air felt different. Not heavy, not sad, just still. I put the kettle on, poured myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window. The oak tree outside swayed gently, its branches bending in the wind but never breaking. I thought maybe that's what love is too, bending but not breaking. When I first came back to my little apartment, it felt smaller than I remembered. The air was still, as if the walls were waiting for me to say something. There were no footsteps in the hallway, no sound of laughter spilling from another room, no clatter of dishes or voices calling my name. Only silence, the kind that sits beside you like an old friend you don't really want to see but can't turn away from either. For the first few weeks, I kept expecting the phone to ring. Every time it buzzed, my heart leapt, only to realize it was another automated message or a reminder from the pharmacy. There was never his voice on the other end. I made tea every morning out of habit, still setting 2 cups on the counter. I'd look at the empty one for a moment before putting it back in the cupboard. It was silly, I suppose, but somehow it made me feel like I wasn't drinking alone. The days passed slowly. I started noticing the small things I used to overlook. The way the light filtered through the curtains in soft strips, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint rustle of leaves outside my window. When you live alone, silence becomes a canvas, and every tiny sound feels like a brushstroke of life. Some evenings, I'd sit by the window with my knitting basket. I hadn't knit in years. My hands were clumsy at first, but as the yarn began to take shape, I felt a quiet comfort in the rhythm. Each stitch felt like a conversation with myself, patient, forgiving. Sometimes I would talk aloud as I worked. Not to anyone in particular, maybe to the air or to the years gone by. I'd say things I never said when I had the chance. Did I do too much? Did I love him the wrong way? There was no answer, of course. But sometimes, speaking it aloud was enough to ease the ache. On rainy mornings, I'd make soup and let it simmer for hours. The smell filled the apartment, and for a fleeting moment, I could almost pretend my son would walk in, complaining about the weather, asking what was for dinner. Those memories used to hurt. Now they felt softer, like an old photograph that's lost its sharpness but not its meaning. I began writing letters again. Not emails, not messages, real letters written with pen on paper. But I never sent them. I kept them in a wooden box under my bed. Some started with Dear Daniel, others with My Dear Boy, or simply Son. I wrote about the weather, about the neighbor's cat, about the soup I made that day. But between the lines, I think I was really writing about love, the kind that doesn't fade even when it's not returned. There's something healing about writing. You begin thinking you're trying to reach someone else, but somehow you end up finding yourself. One afternoon, while cleaning the kitchen drawer, I found an old photograph. It was Daniel, maybe 10 years old, holding a seashell to his ear at the beach. His smile was wide, his hair messy from the wind. I remembered that day so vividly. How he ran ahead of me, calling, "Mom, listen. It sounds like the ocean's trapped inside." I had laughed and told him that maybe the ocean was whispering secrets just for him. Holding that photo now, I smiled again. The ocean had always been part of our lives. Endless, unpredictable, but beautiful. And maybe love was the same. You couldn't always hold it. Sometimes it drifted far away, but it was never truly gone. As the months went by, I began finding peace in small rituals. I planted flowers on the balcony, marigolds, daisies, and a small rose bush. First, they wilted under my uncertain care, but slowly they began to bloom. Each morning I'd water them and whisper, "You're doing fine." Maybe I was really saying that to myself. I started walking in the park again. At first, I avoided the playground where mothers sat watching their children. But one day I stopped there. I sat on a bench, listening to the laughter, and felt something loosen inside me. I realized that love doesn't stop when your child grows up. It simply changes shape, from holding their hand to letting them go. Sometimes at night, I dream of Daniel as a little boy. We'd be in the kitchen baking cookies, flour on our hands. He'd say, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll never leave you." I'd wake up with tears on my face, but not the heavy kind. They felt cleansing, almost grateful. Because even if he wasn't beside me, he was still somewhere in the world. And that was enough to keep a piece of light inside me. I stopped checking my phone so often. Stopped waiting for the mail. Life began to find its rhythm again. Not the one I had before, but a gentler one. One Sunday, as I was watering the roses, a small petal fell into my hand. It was pale pink, delicate. I held it up to the sunlight and smiled. There was beauty in impermanence, in letting go, in trusting that what's meant to return will find its way back. Months passed, then nearly a year. Winter came softly that year. Snow covered the streets, and I spent most evenings wrapped in a blanket, reading by the window. Sometimes I'd watch the lights flicker in other apartments and imagine the stories behind them. Families gathered for dinner, laughter echoing, a mother somewhere tucking her grandchild to bed. And yet I didn't feel envy anymore, only warmth, as if I was part of something bigger. A quiet thread in a vast tapestry of mothers who had loved deeply, lost quietly, and still carried hope. One morning after a snowfall, I stood by my window and watched the sunlight bounce off the white rooftops. The world looked peaceful, renewed. I whispered to the light, "I forgive you, my son. I forgive myself too." It wasn't an act of surrender. It was an act of love, the kind that expects nothing but still believes in return. In that moment I felt lighter. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this. Love doesn't end when people walk away. It lingers in the things we've taught them, the memories we've shared, and the quiet prayers whispered in the dark. I didn't need his apology anymore. I just hoped wherever he was happy, and that someday if he looked back he'd know I was never angry, just waiting with an open heart. That night I opened the box under my bed, the one with all the unsent letters. I read a few, smiling at my shaky handwriting and simple words. Then I took a blank sheet of paper and wrote one more. "Dear Daniel, I hope life has been kind to you. The roses bloomed early this year. I thought of you when I saw them. Maybe that's how love works. It never really leaves. It just grows somewhere else. If you ever miss home, it's still here, just quieter now. Love always, Mom." I folded the letter and placed it on top of the others. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the need to hide it away. Outside, the snow was still falling, soft, endless, forgiving.